Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Evolve Podcast. This is your host, Daniel Spees, and today we're going to talk about the new year and how to have a good new year, or have the best new year, rather, every year. So without further ado, let's get into some of the topics I have for you today. If you have a pen and paper, I highly suggest it. We have a lot of really interesting topics. But the first one, I wanted to start off with a philosophy that if you're already, starting off the new year with resolutions, well, you're in for a surprise, because I personally believe that if you start off the year thinking that you're going to, complete or start something that you really want to do and actually do it, very unlikely. And I'm not meaning to be pessimistic for no reason, right? The philosophy here is that you need to already have momentum into the new year. You already have to have these things started. And so the best way to complete things, to see things into fruition with really good energy control and an investment, is to have things started, up and running. It's already coasting down the road, and you're putting the same amount of energy over time, and that inertia and that momentum helps you get to those goals a lot, whatever you want to do, a lot easier and a lot more efficiently. And so, my first thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the new year is, well, one, welcome to the new year. Two, there's a lot of work to get done. But three, a lot of what you're looking for and a lot of what you're trying to accomplish is going to happen when you bring momentum into the picture. And I cannot stress this enough. And when I look at this in my own life, I see the parts of my life where I don't have momentum, and then there's places where I do. I'll give you two good examples of where I have momentum. Right now, I'm at the gym. I go every day. I go 6 days a week. And so I've been doing that pretty consistently. And so as a result, my recovery is better. My conditioning is better. My growth is better, right? It's same amount of participation, consistently having that momentum already at the gym, going every day. It's a no-brainer. Another example, socially, I've been socially consistent in keeping up with friends, seeing friends, being there for friends, and as a result, that creates opportunities, in your social life, and it creates a certain level of healthiness, I believe. And I've definitely been seeing, good things in both areas that involve momentum, and leveraging momentum in things like this, and some things I'm about to dive into, like the Wheel of Life, are very important, because when you keep things going, you keep things running, they end up creating more space and more opportunities for you. Whereas if you didn't have momentum with these things, they wouldn't be there. They'd be non-existent. And so this first segment is talking about individual things, and then we're going to dive into the Wheel of Life later. But I want to talk about a couple more things and talk about how we can wrap these all up for it to make sense in your new year, right? So the first thing was momentum. The second thing is speed and action. And so speed is the key. And, combining that with speed and action, allergies, speed and action with momentum, right? So just getting things done, taking massive action, just taking the energy and effort to start doing things creates more opportunity for things to happen. And it sounds like common sense, but we can't think things into existence. We can't rely on other people. We can't rely on our wishful thinking, in terms of, I want to get to this tomorrow, do something today. And a good example is I've been, it's been a couple days since the new year has hit, and I wanted to do this podcast episode because it's one of my favorite ones to do. And I was like, not putting it off, but I'm like, I just have to do it. And I can't wait for an ideal time, and I can't wait for, the best time to do something, because nothing's perfect in life. And so, yeah, you know what? I'm going to sound a little congested on this podcast episode, but you know what? I would have done it. I would have gotten through some great content, and hopefully some people get some takeaway, tidbits from this podcast episode, because I had done it, right? And so the point is, the more you do, the more actions you commit to the things that you want to do, creates that momentum for the trajectory you want, creates those opportunities, creates those experiences that you want, right? So new year, start off with massive action and maintain that, and get those different parts of your goals or whatever you want to a good enough momentum to where you can start seeing results. And it doesn't happen overnight, depending on what you're trying to do. It might take a couple months, it might take a couple years, but it doesn't happen without momentum. So another thing separate that I wanted to review, strengths and weaknesses. So when we talk about strengths and weaknesses, what are we talking about? We're talking about knowing thyself. We're talking about knowing who you are, knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you should be doubling down on, what you should be outsourcing. And what I simply mean by that is just know yourself. Like, if you know you suck at something, don't hold a high expectation or a high bar to commit to working on that. Don't think that you have to work on it. Some things are just better off outsourcing, right? If you don't like, I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but if you're not good with, time management, if you're not good with, keeping up physically, get support in those areas. Like, don't solely rely on yourself. Know where to put your energy best. It's way better if you commit the majority, like 95% of your energy to the things that you know how to do best, than committing 95% of your energy to the things you don't know, that you just really aren't great at. Am I saying it's not a good idea to work on those things? No. What I'm saying is your time is best spent utilizing your energy with the things that you're just great at, and outsourcing those things, that half outsourcing things you're not good at, getting support, relying on tools, things you're not good at. But then the other half of that is also working on those things slightly. That's, what we'll get to in the personal development section, the Wheel of Life. But yeah, personal development's important. So you want to be able to work on things you're not the best at. It helps to be as well-rounded as possible and increase those parts of ourselves that are not the best, because, you're only as good as your lowest, spot in terms of the Wheel of Life, and I believe. So just food for thought. Think about your strengths and weaknesses in terms of, how you utilize your strengths and weaknesses throughout the year. And maybe commit to, doubling down more on stuff you like to do, or the things that you're good at. Doing less of what you're not good at. Food for thought. Another one that I really want to touch base on is time management review and prioritization. And so this one's very big, because a lot of people, as I've discussed in prior episode, a lot of people do not time manage effectively. They don't, I'm not saying live out of your calendar, your Google Calendar, but what I am saying is be mindful of how you go about your life, go about where you spend your time, go about, think about the data you take in and out, right? That affects the time that you spend on things, right? Like the friends you hang around with, maybe it's like a work, you have like spend a little bit more time at work than you should have, maybe a little bit more time around the house than you should have, maybe not committing enough time to networking, meeting people. This could look like so many different things. And I think the big takeaway here is, review how you prioritize things in your life. What you're most likely going to find is that we prioritize things that are easy, based off of our strengths and weaknesses. We prioritize based off of that, and then we create a time management system off of that. And as a result, that's where we are, in life. But I personally believe that if you review your time management, and you look at how you kind of go about your life on a micro level, you become more conscientious of how you do things and why you do things and why you prioritize, you know, what you prioritize, which is very connected to your belief system. You'll find that you can reprioritize things. A lot of people just loosely prioritize. They just kind of don't think about how they go about life and how they interact with people in life in general, things that they need to do. The moment you start prioritizing effectively things that you want for yourself, the more you'll get done, the more you'll feel accomplished in a day-to-day setting. Your time management will be easier because if you can, like, let's just say, prioritize things from a matrix of like 1 to 3, like 3 being not as important, 1 being very important, you'll find that, creating a structure around how you prioritize, how you time manage will really benefit not only you and the people in your life. It'll definitely give you a clear picture and indication of what's important to you and what's not, and how to filter those things out. Another thing I wanted to touch up on is goals and vision or mission. And I think that, obviously everybody's going to want to revisit their goals and, for the whole new year, right? But I think that we can safely say that goals and, your vision or mission in life, they change slightly over time. But it's a good thing to do to reevaluate your goals and your bigger goals, in a serious way, and really break it down, not just because, like, if you had a goal, for example, to, I don't know, let's say you're getting ready for a marathon or a triathlon, let's just say. You've been training for 3 years, 2 years, it's a long-term goal, and you find that this year, for some reason, when you really break down your desire for this goal, wanting this goal to happen, it's not as important as it was last year. And I'm not saying this out of a motivation, I'm just saying this for example. Sometimes we have goals and we have a vision and things slightly change. And because we don't slightly adjust to how your goals have slightly changed, it still leaves you on a path that's maybe not as connected as where you really want to go, just slightly. So it's really important to stay in touch with your goals, your purpose, your vision, how these things change a little bit over time. It's a lot easier in hindsight to just think in your headspace, yeah, this is what I want for myself. But then a year goes by, and then you say to yourself, well, a year went by, experienced a lot, and maybe this has changed a little bit for me, and that's okay. I think over time things should change, right? People change. Your goals, vision, and mission should change. All these things that we're talking about should be adaptable over time. So I think goals and vision and mission are pretty big ones, but also taking a deep dive on how you see them differently, how to approach them differently, how to get to them, right? And that's a whole other story, is how to accomplish your goals and vision or mission in life. But for the sake of the new year, just reflect on your stance on your goals and vision or mission, and feel out, where you are with those things. Get a sense of how important it was to you. Is it grown in importance? Is it lessened in importance? Are you on track for your goals? These are all really important things to kind of just think about and write down. Maybe you have new goals. Maybe the goal from last year is going to go by the wayside because you have a way more prevalent goal for this year. Who knows? The next one we have is really big as well. This is probably one of the bigger ones I would suggest everybody really sits and listens to, takes with a grain of salt at the end of this. Identity review. And the reason why I say identity review is so important going into the new year is similar to the last episode that we just did about limiting beliefs being tied to identity, which is like the second level before identity, which is the most important, which is who you are. identity review is so critical. And I think that at the beginning of a new year, or at least at some point in the year, it doesn't have to be the new year, but at some point in the year, you do an identity review where you sit down with yourself, you write out who you are and what you're like on, what you think about, what your headspace is like, and all these things that make up who you are. Who is you and who is Daniel? Who am I underneath the surface? Like, what kind of person am I? What kind of life am I trying to lead? What kind of beliefs and values am I trying to embody? What kind of skills and capabilities do I have currently and that I desire? What kind of internal and external behaviors do I exhibit? And what kind of internal and external environments am I in? Right? And so it all starts at the bottom, right? It all starts with your identity. But your identity is generated by your beliefs and values, which is generated by your skills and capabilities, which is then generated by your internal and external behaviors and environments. So where you are in life, who you hang out with, who you expose yourself to, what kind of information is coming in and out of your life, in and out of your brain, even physically, what you touch, the things that you expose yourself to chemically. Like, I'm really big right now on estrogenetics or estrogenotics, which is like how a lot of materials and processed materials in your day-to-day life can affect your hormone levels. So it's like, if you look at this from a meta level all the way up to your identity, which is the biggest one, because your identity is responsible for your actions, your decisions, your responses. Like, it dictates everything on the ladder, right? And I think reviewing your identity, reviewing these things, which were identity, belief and values, skills and capabilities, internal and external behavior and environments. I think when you review all those and you review the whole landscape of your life and break it down and what that looks like, I think that will paint not only a really good picture of who you are, like what you're about in the moment right now, like who is you, but it also lets you know, it also allows you to see your limitations. It shows you, by showing yourself who, right, whether it's writing it down or however you may do this, understanding your identity and all these other things really paints this picture of where to go next. Because hopefully you have goals for the kind of person that you want to become. Maybe you haven't thought about how you change over time, how you want to evolve personally. But a really good exercise for this, maybe, for identity review, is to not only review where you're at with all these things, but to also create a frame, a picture, or a narrative. I like to use framing. Framing's really cool. Imagine your life and yourself in a picture frame, and then create a version of you that you want to be in this frame, and then compare it to the review that you just did with your identity, and see where there are discrepancies and gaps. Where do you think you can grow? Where do you think you should put attention to? Maybe, your identity is great, beliefs and values solid, skills and capabilities amazing, but you know what? You don't behave. Maybe you don't match up to those. You're not matching up to those things that you really care about. That makes you you. Maybe you're in an environment where you're surrounded by people and things that don't represent the you that you want to become. In which case, the law of averages comes into play, and you average to whatever it is that you surround yourself with. Those slowly feed into who you are as a person. And it's really important. It's very dangerous to not be mindful, because the physical gets meta very quickly. And if that seeps into your identity, you're in trouble. So for the new year, or at some point, do an identity review. Think about the person you want to become, the version of yourself who you want to be, and compare that to who you are now. So now we're going to go into the Wheel of Life. And the Wheel of Life is one of my favorite things, mostly because the Wheel of Life is an all-encompassing, balancing key performance indicator for yourself. And so the Wheel of Life will have maybe, if you Google the Wheel of Life, it might show different spokes with different names. In the context of this episode, we're going to talk about Wheel of Life in terms of career, family, personal development, spirituality, fun and enjoyment, relationships, health, and finance. These are the pillars of life that we more or less operate off of, whether we know it or not. And at least having awareness of the Wheel of Life is really nice, because in my experience, I've been aware of the Wheel of Life for a while, and I have certain things in place where I review my Wheel of Life. And there's a lot of really cool things you can do with this. You can grade yourself off of these parameters. You can create milestones. You can create goals. But I think the biggest thing here is that you want to make sure that every component of the Wheel of Life that I've just mentioned has some level of balance and health to them. And so I want to go through each one individually, talk about maybe some things that you'd want to do if you wanted to work on any of these spokes from a surface level, just a top-down approach of what these things look like and how you can work on them. Personally, I grade myself every 2 to 4 weeks on each of these and how I'm doing in terms of where my goals are for these particular pillars of the Wheels of Life. And then I rate myself. Everybody's different. Everybody can create their own different system. There's no one perfect system to do this, but I think reviewing this for the new year or at some point in the year or doing it consistently is a very good idea. Just because you want to know that you're moving forward in life. You want to know that you are getting to where you want to be and that you're being intentional with your progress and not reactive and not dissonant in just going through the motions of your day-to-day life, right? So let's get into this. So first one, we got career. And so you may want to review your career in general this year as maybe, am I networking enough in my career space and industry? Am I educating myself up to level up maybe to a different role, right? Am I learning a lot? Am I learning new things? Am I becoming more of an asset to whether you own your own business or a company? Are you becoming more of an asset so that you can level up in general? Are you pivoting? Which could mean, are you pivoting to maybe you should pivot to a different kind of role. I know a lot of people sidestep to something they're not used to, and maybe that's something to consider. A lot of the times, I would not even say a lot of the time, I would say it's integral with purpose and what you do in your life that your interests change over time. And so if you are a scientist one day you might wake up and say, you know what, I want to be a researcher, or I want to be a mathematician, or I just want to do something totally different. And so it's not a bad idea to think about where you are in your career and think about, is this what I want to continue to do and grow in and go forward in, or do I want to pivot, right? Because reframing your career or I guess what I'm trying to say is becoming alert of where you are with your career, if it's still what you want to do, or pivoting to something else that may be more of interest, more life satisfaction, maybe more money as well, right? So that's something to consider as well as pivoting. And advancement, thinking about your trajectory of where you are now in your company or your business, and thinking to yourself, where can I level up from here, right? Because let's be honest, we're not trying to stay in the same spot. If you are, I would argue that that's not a healthy thing to do. So in whatever shape or form this advancement looks like, this advancement can also look like, maybe demoting yourself at a company for a role that you'd actually really like. So it really depends on the context of advancement. And I'm using the term advancement lightly to suggest that you should think about for the new year where you want to go next. And what that looks like and how to get there. In terms of maybe family, which is the next pillar we got, some things to consider is to review your family, whether it's you have a family yourself, like you have kids and a wife or husband, or you have your family, as a generalization of just the well-being and balance with your family. I think I wrote down some really cool components I think that really matter is presence, being present with your family, whether it's your mom, your dad, your wife, your kids. Having presence is very powerful. You know, letting people know that you're there, like you're actually there, you're not on your phone, that you are giving people the attention that they deserve in a one-on-one interaction goes a very long way. Servitude. Are you serving your family in a capacity that's rewarding to yourself and to them as beneficiaries? Are you giving back to your family? Are you benefiting somebody? Right? And I think this is really big because servitude is a two-way street. I think that the more you serve, the more you give back. The more you give back to yourself in return, and it's a really good thing when you're contributing. You can actually contribute to a bigger structure, and I think families, everybody should be serving in some way, and I think that's a big deal, and I think it solicits respect and trust and loyalty. So I think servitude's a big one. Intimacy, I think, is another big one as well. Having a deeper level of connection with the people that you care most about, in this context, family. I think it's important to, when possible, create deeper levels of connecting with folks you really care about. I think it's a really big deal to, I think that without intimacy, you're missing the cement or a part of the cement of the foundation of a house or a building. I think intimacy is super important because without servitude, right, that's one thing. Without presence, that's another. But without intimacy, without actually, caring to be a part of that person's life in a deeper way, I think people feel less. Let's say people feel less of, but I think the quality of the connection is not as strong. And even though you have a really solid foundation, if the relationship is, if the foundation is cement, what's the point of having cement foundation in a very flimsy walling, right? Or on top of the cement, whatever that might look like, right? So I think intimacy is very integral, servitude is very integral, presence, and communication. I think these were all components where you can review with family and say to yourself, well, which ones of these am I lacking in? Presence, servitude, intimacy, communication. Work on those. You don't have to work on all of them. The goal with this, with talking about all these points is, there's a lot of diversity of a lot of options and a lot of opportunity of what to work on and put your attention to. These are just ideas. Everybody has different focuses. So, with career, with family, with whichever we talk about, everyone's going to have different focuses that they care about. Personal development's the next one. This one's really easy, working on skills, working on yourself, and the story you tell yourself, right? The narrative, really, really big. This goes back into the identity review that we were talking about earlier. I think it's super important to always be working on skills and working on the self-realization, which is different from spirituality. I think it's self more in the context of awareness, and the story, how you frame your life, your narrative, your level of accountability and ownership, and all those great things that we'd like to be better at, right? Being more aware and cognizant of where we are and where we want to be in terms of, how we want to grow as a person, which is different from identity, because identity is just who we are, right? And what makes you you. And I think personal development, it coincides definitely, but they're very closely work together. If they were two parts of a car, they'd be connected to make the engine run somehow, right? And I think the story you tell yourself, that's a really big one. I think starting off the new year, I think understanding where you are on the scale of victimhood at one side, victimhood and self-sabotage on one side, and accountability and ownership on the other. I think it's important to really kind of like think about where you are on that spectrum and how to get to accountability and ownership as soon as possible. Spirituality, regardless of your religious beliefs and orientations, I think everybody has spirituality in their life, and to everybody that means something different. So I think dedicating time to sifting through how your views of life or the self have changed, and how that affects your life, how your spirituality, how your current viewpoints bring about your decisions and stuff, is really important. So I think we should all sit down and, this might look like, I think meditation's really good for this too. Really sitting with yourself and thinking about what you believe in. And I could do a whole episode on meditation, but, I think in terms of spirituality, this may be going to your priest or rabbi or whoever, somebody, being more a part of that community, being more a part of those learnings, in what you believe, and reinforcing those values and beliefs with others you care about. So I don't believe that this spirituality pillar is just just a you thing. I think this could branch out. This could be a you thing. This could be bringing other people to participate in your spirituality, and also on a community level, which is something that I do. There's layers of spirituality. There's interacting with spirituality on the self level, support level with other folks, maybe a couple other individuals that you share with, and then the community level. I think all three angles of that are equally important, and to revisit your spirituality and to think, where are you with your spirituality, and how you want to grow, what direction, what does that look like, where do you want to orient yourself with what you believe in. And we have a couple more, guys, so thanks for staying with me for so long. We have a couple more. We got 4 more. We got fun and enjoyment. Reviewing your year back and rewind. Did you have a lot of fun? Did you have a lot of enjoyment? If not, is that something you want this year? Right? I know for myself, I want to have a lot of fun and enjoyment. I want to travel. I want to do a lot of things this year. And I want to have fun. I want to smile more. So I think fun and enjoyment really is boiled down to creating memories and connecting with others and yourself within those things, right? And I think fun and enjoyment is very contingent on creating memories and things you enjoy and sharing that with others. And everybody's going to have a different level. Everybody has a certain level of fun that they want to commit to. I've always been somebody who's very low on commitment. Low on fun and enjoyment, because I like to work. I'd rather, I have a lot of hobbies, but, it's very easy for me to put fun and enjoyment to the wayside. So this year, I'm going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to review the fun and enjoyment part of my life, give it a little bit more. And I suggest in review, when you guys do your reviews, that you maybe consider doing more or less. Maybe you had way too much fun last year, and that took away from some of the other pillars we talked about. So it's all a balance act with the wheel of life, and everyone's going to have a different ratio and proportions, within that wheel. And so you just got to figure this out, where, how much fun and enjoyment you want, how much you want to contribute to career, family, personal dev, all those things. They're all different ratios within the pie. And I think a good thing to do for the new year is to figure out your ratios, and then attack the things that you care to do in these things. Relationships is the next one, which is really big. I think that similar to family, I added a second one. So not only just servitude, presence, intimacy, but you also have participation and value. I put it here as well. I'm not going to recap the ones that I mentioned, but value and participation. I think that when we have friendships and relationships, I think Participating can be slightly different than presence. I think participating could mean being more physically available, physically active for your friends, whether that's like coming out to something versus being present out in that action. So like sometimes you just want to go out and have fun, but sometimes you want to hang out with somebody and feel like that person's there with you, which is different. So presence and participation is very important, very different, and they have different orientations of intimacy. So participation and presence both are a really good way to build on intimacy with your relationships. But, there's a lot of things that, have to do with intimacy. The next thing that I had, though, here with relationships was value. And, whether we like to or not, we all give value differently to our friends. Friends see us giving them value in different ways. We are all individually valuable in different ways to our friends, and it's one of those areas of talking about friendships and relationships that isn't really spoken about because it sounds more transactionary. But whether you believe it or not, everybody in your life right now, they perceive you and put you in a box or judge you, and they appreciate you for a lot of things, and they look over a lot of things as well. They kind of ignore a lot. But the thing that I would say about value in terms of value of friendships is understand what I mean by value is understand what makes your friendships qualitative, what makes your friendships unique. What do you get out of your friendships? What do you contribute to your friendships? What is the value exchange there? Because everybody has a different kind of relationship with your friends, significant other, family members. Maybe you'd like to really create more value in your relationships this year. Think about how you give back to your closest friends and how they give back to you. And if there's any discrepancies there, then that might be a good starting point in terms of talking with people you care about where y'all are at with the value that you give to one another and why you're in that friendship and what makes that friendship meaningful to you, and going from there. So the next two we got, health and finance. Health, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, but maybe you'd want to review your health, physical and mental state. Like I said earlier in the podcast episode, I'm being a little bit more aware of my physical stuff now that I'm 30. I'm getting a little bit older. I want to definitely be more conscientious of how I'm going about life. I don't want to, there's that saying, use it or lose it. That's a big mentality that I have right now. So I'm trying to be very aware of that going to the new year. And my mental state and, really making sure that I'm balancing out my headspace. But, your mental state is really a byproduct of all these things that we're talking about here. And so I think that if you're struggling mentally and you're not really doing good, maybe you have depression, maybe you're not in a good space, odds are there's something here that we've talked about that is amiss, that you wish could be better. And usually it's just one of those quick fix. It's just a slight change in what you do of one of the things that we've just mentioned that really elevates your mental place. So physical, mental, and finance. What are your financial goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Where are you trying to, how do your finances tie into your goals and your other wheel of life stuff? Are you balancing? Are you ratioing out your finances to your ratios of wheel of life, right? Maybe you want to commit more money to fun versus family versus career. Who knows? But it's important to know how you want to allocate your finances, do budget review, see like where your budget is. Are you taking in as much money as you'd want? Do you want to make more money? What does that look like? Just really reviewing that. And your milestones. Where are you financially in terms of milestones? It's a really big one too. If you're moving very slowly to your milestones, odds are it's not a strategy that's working well. You should see pretty good incremental change. Like it shouldn't be sluggish. your progress with any goal, really, you should be seeing some kind of change, whether it's every couple days, or maybe once a week, or every 2 weeks. There should be those changes. And if you're just seeing no change, that means you really have to change what you're doing. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had for you guys. I kind of breezed through a lot of these topics, but got through it all. So I really hope that this helped you in some way. And I'm going to post this in the podcast and YouTube description so that you guys can see these notes for reference if you care to see these notes. And reach out or comment if you have anything to add to this that you think other people would benefit from. I don't think you can leave comments on podcasts, but you're more than happy to leave a review on YouTube. Leave a comment on YouTube. And as always, we'll appreciate the support. If you want to follow my podcast on any of the platforms you like, leave a like for this podcast or a review. Would greatly appreciate it. And with that being said, welcome to the new year, guys, 2023. Hopefully it's the best new year, and hopefully the next one after that, and after that, so on and so forth. I will see you next time. Take care.